everybody. Kay Crystal Griffith here, and welcome back for your daily digest of emotions, wisdom, and your body. Today, we are going to delve into how your emotions are affecting your body, soul, and spirit. We've got a good word today, too. So excited. It should be short and sweet. I'm going to hold to it. No squirrels. So I just want to remind you, I'm not a doctor. I do not play one on TV. But what I do is offer you some education, edification, and encouragement. I do my master's in adult education, as well as several inner healing accreditations and trauma certifications. So let's get started. Today's word is tainted. Have you ever felt like you had a stain on your body, soul, or spirit that you couldn't get off no matter what you tried to do? A lot of us have, especially if you've been abused in any situation. And, there's 7 different types of abuse. And so we're not always just talking about physical abuse. And so when we talk about those situations, it's almost like it's black and blue on your actual soul, on your spirit. And that tainted feeling for however it came to be there really just never goes away, no matter how much OxyClean you put on it, right? So let's talk about what that really means. So tainted is really a trace of bad or undesirable qualities or substance. It's altered from a pure state or condition, an undesirable defect or shortcoming, a person or thing that's been touched by rot or corruption. Notice it didn't say the person or the thing, but it has been touched by something of rot or corruption. I want to point that out on purpose because when we have felt tainted, we often think it's us versus what we've endured. And I would really challenge your mindset tonight to think about tainted as what you have had to walk through. So for example, if you've ever gone to a bubble run, I did this with some friends a couple of years ago, and it's this big bubble machine and they're just like blowing bubbles everywhere. And then they shot out this rainbow color to make the bubbles a different color, but then you got pink and yellow and blue and green and all that, right? And so we walked through that or ran through that. And so when we go through that, then we become those colors, right? And so our skin is tainted at that point, right? But are you in that moment? I wasn't. My identity hadn't changed. I just had something on me. I needed to scrub it off and get it off, right? So when we can think about tainted as really something that can be removed, I think it might give you a different outlook as we talk about that for the rest of the day. Now, here are some synonyms, and I really included those this time on purpose because these are things that perhaps maybe you felt these instead of tainted. Perhaps contaminated, corrupted, dirty, infected, polluted, rotten, decayed, impaired, diseased, or impure. And again, none of those actually are about you as a person, but about the trauma that you had to walk through. And if you're not quite sure what trauma is, we had a very long conversation about that last night. And I would encourage you to look at that video because when we talk about the impacts of trauma, it actually goes in a number of directions that perhaps you never even realized or thought about. So are you really seeing yourself through the eyes of betrayal, hurt, rejection? And in turn, you're constantly striving for approval and perfection. Have you gone through life thinking you're not enough? And there is your unworthiness. So your senses may be a cue that can ignite some emotional recall. Now, while walking past maybe a perfume counter, you might remember somebody. I often have a good friend in Mississippi, and there was a certain perfume that she wore that nobody else in my life ever wore. So anytime I smell that, I'm like, oh, where's Oma? So I'm looking for her when I smell that, right? And she lives multiple states away. Or on the other hand, there might be a person who might have overused scented products, and you're like, oh my gosh. Why do they always wear that perfume, right? And it kind of takes your breath away. Like my 15-year-old's choice of current perfume right now. And I'm like, open the window, you sprayed the perfume. There could also be a certain place that could evoke a memory of being somewhere in the past or a pleasant or unpleasant emotion attached to that experience. I got to tell you, if you can smell waffle fries, you've probably seen or been to Chick-fil-A. And that tends to be our restaurant of choice in this household. And so anytime we smell waffle fries, we're like, who's got Chick-fil-A? Because we know that smell, right? And so things like that. Perhaps there's a song from maybe a school dance, first crush. What was playing when you had your first kiss? What was playing when you had your first dance, maybe at your wedding? What was perhaps something that you wore for your first date and you remember it? And trust me, I guarantee that probably the other person does too. They just might act like they don't. All different types of ways that our senses are also involved in how we receive emotions, right? And so oftentimes there are trigger emotions to those situations and traumas that you've experienced that are causing you to feel that taintedness. And it could be a toy, it could be a room, it could be a movie, it could be a person. And so our talk today is not to invoke those memories, but our talk is for you to be aware of how your senses play into your emotions. So tainted is definitely a negative emotion, and it really is a negative emotional state. And that can lead to physical ailments, such as excessive cortisol release. Those are those hormones that get activated by that amygdala again, which is hijacking your frontal lobe and causing all kinds of chaos in your central nervous system. This can also occur because you're going through a difficult time. You're letting negative thoughts and emotions take control. For example, maybe it's a chronic neck pain that could possibly indicate an inability to see different perspectives. Unexplained hip pain that could be a sign that you're overrun with fear and you're unable to make important decisions. Upper back pain, which is associated with heartbreak. Middle back pain, which is related to the inability to let go of the past. Lower back pain, on the other hand, is connected to financial stress. Isn't it fascinating where we hold all of these emotions and what they're really connected to in daily life decisions? So imagine if you are feeling tainted, how much are you feeling tainted? Because you don't feel tainted just enough to where your ear hurts, right? You feel tainted enough as an emotion that your whole body could compensate by creating constant chronic pain. And so our bodies are just amazing creations that once they're triggered by these emotional feelings can do all kinds of crazy things. I mean, crazy things. And trigger things in your brain that could give you seizures, could make you go blind, could lose feeling in your legs or your arms or your hands. I mean, folks, I'm just telling you, I've seen it firsthand. I now hear more and more stories about these things, and it is unbelievable what those emotionals can do for us. Now, sometimes we might not realize there's been an emotional trigger. An emotional trigger can actually take up to 30 days for your body to process into it. Not necessarily release or get rid of it, but to just absorb into it. So a trigger and a reaction that you're having in your body today could have been from a trigger 30 days ago. So when you're having some type of trigger situation and you're now feeling some of those things that we've just talked about, really kind of contemplate what's been going over in your life in the last couple of weeks. And that might give you a better idea. Now, feeling tainted comes on pretty quickly from a trauma, but can last a very long time. And so the effects of that feeling tainted are actually pretty immediate. But they can last much longer than 30 days. And we're talking years or decades, possibly, depending on the type of trauma that has caused the taintedness. So experiencing a pain, even in your knees, can actually indicate fear or pride or lack of control. When you're in a situation that makes you angry, there is actually a biochemical reaction that occurs in your body. And that reaction increases your adrenaline levels, it releases your cortisol, and it actually can cause you to relive the trauma that has caused you to feel tainted again and again. So those feelings of sadness that come along with it can also greatly influence your energy levels and your motivation. And sadness also causes fatigue, excessive tiredness, and absolutely low energy levels. So Psychology Today explains emotional memories are powerful and they serve to guide and inform us as we navigate the present and prepare for the future. And if you've ever had a drink or a taste of something that's spoiled, like that milk, 2 days past the expiration date, right? You know that emotional memory protects you from doing that again. And then you learn how to smell the milk, right? Unfortunately, you might unintentionally apply that same principle to actually relationships in your life, where an implicit or explicit memory can cause you to interfere with your pursuits of having love in your life. At the point that you have had trust betrayed, and you actually do feel tainted by that oftentimes, you will be a lot more conservative to run out. Now, there is the other side of that coin where there are going to be some people who then have such a lack of worth because of how they were betrayed and how tainted they feel, they will give their body to anyone and everyone. So you're going to have both sides, ones that almost hibernate and ones that go and do everything. And those become issues in themselves and just create even more taintedness, even more unworthiness. And so we have to work on those. We have to get those feelings processed back to when the taintedness initially started and why. So we can process those feelings, take the electrical charge off of them, and then you can talk about them, and yet there is no rise within you. And it does make a difference if you can process those feelings. Now, the interpretation that you make when you have an emotional memory is really activated in any case, and it's left to your good judgment. So you make the choice of whether that emotional memory that you're running through your head with, or you've been triggered by a sense, one of your 5 senses, is that going to be a good thing or a bad thing? And if it is something that you feel like is a bad trigger for you, how can we process it? So then when you are triggered again by the same thought, feeling, emotion, smell, hearing, audio, touch, how can you then walk through it without feeling the trigger itself? So from a tainted perspective, those emotional memories then become the filters with which you make those ongoing life decisions. You are no longer making decisions from a pure perspective without stain or blemish. And yet, this is the coolest part. And yet, God sees you as whole, as righteous, as complete. You are a masterpiece. There is no taintedness upon you. There's nothing that causes blemish because he's willing to exchange that cloak of taintedness for one of purity, of righteousness, of white, of really choosing to see you as he created you, not as what the world has dumped upon you, or even by your own choices. Your stains are not what he sees in you or on you. And no matter what you've endured, what you have walked through, maybe even chosen, God sees you as a masterpiece. So inner heart healing can identify where those tainted feelings and emotions really started. And where was that moment that the stain actually came upon you? The Lord can take you right to that moment. He will be with you, even if there is fear, to take you to that moment so he can show you where he was in that moment, how he sees you in that moment, how he sees you now. And he can walk with you and walk you out of it so you can walk in wholeness without blemish. And yes, that is true. It is possible. I promise. I'd say Scouts honor, but I've been out of Scouts way too long. But ultimately, you are responsible for giving the moments in your daily life positive or negative connotation. So what are your 3 wisdom verses today? First, Thessalonians 4:7. God did not call us to be impure, but to be holy. He doesn't want you to stay where you are. He wants you to be able to see you as he sees you. 2 Corinthians 5:17. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has gone. The new has come. That means you are washed clean. It's not there anymore. You know, one of the verses I didn't write down that I recently used with somebody, as far as the east is from the west, he cast that sin away and he can't find it. So why should you go looking for it? If he's forgiven you, who are you not to forgive yourself? Food for thought. Ephesians 4:24, and to put on your new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. And then one more, Romans 8:37. In all these things, we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. So you can conquer this. You can walk through this. You can't choose to say, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want these stains on myself. I want you to take them, Lord. And he will. That's how cool God is. He's just waiting for you. It's almost like that puppy just dying. He knows he's going to get the treat, right? He's just like, okay, I'm really excited. Give it to me, give it to me. And that's how God sees it. He is dying to take that off of you because he knows the minute he can take that off of you, because you surrender it, you lay it at his altar, you lay it at his feet, you go, just take it, right? You surrender. Oh, he gets so excited because now he can move in the ways that he has been dying to move because you have finally made room for him to be there. Isn't that awesome? I know. So how are you going to use this new information about feeling tainted? Remember, wisdom is not just the hearing, but the understanding and application. So here are your 3 questions. How are you going to use this emotion, taintedness? How has it been showing up in your life? Has it been negative? Has it been keeping you in bondage? Has it been keeping you in the pain that is tormenting you? He doesn't want you there. It's time for freedom. It's time to break out of those chains, folks. So how can you transform taintedness? By that wisdom, understanding, and knowledge as you walk in it in the future. So you can make sure you avoid those things that are turning you all kinds of crazy colors on your soul and your spirit, and allow you to walk in the truth and integrity of who you are in Christ as your identity. So go live, share with us. How has this been affecting your life? And where do you want to take it moving forward in the future? I can't wait to hear it. I know he's got a plan for you. And if you need some help going, I don't know what to do with this, I'd love to help you. So reach out to me on kcrystalgriffith.com, not only to receive more insights in your feelings wheel, but also join us again tomorrow for more on your emotions, wisdom, and your body. Until then, God bless. Take care.